In this video we're going to be having a look at the ECP speaking, but I'm going to be doing something slightly different. Today I'm going to ask a question, and obviously I would like you to try and see if you know the answer to this question before I explain it. So with these questions, obviously I'm going to be highlighting important things you should be aware of in the speaking test, especially in certain stages, and I'll mention that as we go. Anyway, without further ado, let's go for it. So first question for you is, which stages of the speaking exam are informal and formal? Very important to know. And the answer is basically the first three stages are informal. Yes, stage one, the personal question, stage two when you're summarizing, and stage three when you're comparing and working with your partner. These are the informal stages. Then things get formal, stage four and stage five. Stage four, you're presenting to someone who is usually in a position of power, like your boss, a manager, high school principal, something like this, the mayor. And stage five, you're still talking to that person. So it's stage 4 and 5 that are the formal ones. And this is important because you need to choose your language, such as linking words, accordingly. In stage 2, can you add your own information? This is a major no-no. And it's one of the biggest problems I think that candidates have with stage 2, and a lot of people tend to, because they're trying to expand their points, the natural thing to do is, kind of add some of your own information, but you should never, you can expand your points in the sense to show why they're relevant or why they're important, but you should never actually be adding information like how much it costs or where the location is, especially if it doesn't actually state that, because then your partner is going to write all this down, and potentially in stage 3 they could start talking about all this, which actually doesn't really exist. So it causes major problems if candidates add their own information. As well as this, it makes it difficult for your partner when you are summarizing. If you're giving him even more information, it's even more confusing for them. So do expand your points and explain why maybe points are relevant very briefly, but don't actually add your own information, if you know what I mean. Does the scenario you are doing really matter? So at the start of stage 2, the examiner is going to present you with, you are members of a committee, okay? Does this actually matter? Yes, it does. Let's say, for example, you are members of a committee and you have to choose a venue for a dinner for 500 employees. There's important information right there. 500 employees. Or let's say you are your teachers at a school and you have to choose a location for a school trip for teenagers. There's some important information. Teenagers. So you can kind of incorporate this, especially in stage 2 and stage 3. You can use this information. For example, if you had a point saying, one of your options is a museum, you could turn around and say, well, the museum has exhibits about ancient Egypt, and I think in particular the teenagers will be very interested in this. Something like this. So you can relate it to the scenario, and it's almost kind of like a role play. You should live that scenario, that you really are teachers, or you really are choosing. Get into that scenario, live it, and it will actually really help you do well. How many points does each option have? Oh yes, this is a little controversial as well, because some test books out there will mess with this, and I'll get back to this in a minute. Generally, as far as I'm concerned, nearly every ECP exam has 7 points. They will have 6 positive points and at least 1 negative point. Yes, you may have come across an option when you're doing a test that, well, some people will say, oh, but this one has 2 negatives. That depends how you see it, and also, you know, maybe it's just not a very good test book. But this is what it should have: 6 positive, 1 negative. Why is this important? This is important because you know you are listening for 7 pieces of information from your partner when they are summarizing. You can have your 7 bullet points ready and you just fill them in as you go. That is why it's so critical. And remember, that last one is usually a negative. In stage 2, do I need to take notes while listening to my partner? For sure. Obviously, yes, yes, yes. This is a slam dunk yes, because even before you go into the speaking exam, when you're registering at the table outside, the examiners will give you a special, really awesome looking piece of paper. I want one, but I can never get one. Of these pieces of paper that students have to write their name and things, and you actually take that note taking piece of paper into the exam room with you when you're doing the speaking test. And it's especially for you doing speaking tests. I know when you're doing test books, certainly my students, you have the 2 options and they're kind of used to just writing their brief bullet points on the actual piece of paper. You're not allowed to do this because all the options you'll get will be in one of these poly pockets, and obviously they reuse them for every set of candidates, which is very good and very environmentally friendly. I approve. However, you definitely need to take notes, and actually there's going to be a video coming up about exactly this, just taking notes and how to do it effectively. In fact, I'm going to be recording that next. So yes, you do. In part 3, should I run through all my options at once? Now, I've noticed some students have a habit of, when they're, you know, trying to compare, what they'll do is they'll run through 2 or 3 of their points or all of their points and then say to their partner, what do you think? And you've just given your partner, like, woo, you've dropped a bomb load of information on him, and they've got to respond to that. It's not good, even with 2 or 3 points. What you should be doing very clearly with your partner, especially in stage 3, is basically doing 1 point, comparing them, get feedback from your partner. They should choose the next point, talk about it, and then you feedback. So you should be taking turns every point, and you should be feeding back to your partner and giving your opinions on things and covering all the points, of course. So generally, try not to summarize 3 points and then say to your partner, what do you think? It just, you're speaking for too long, you're not turn taking, you're wasting opportunities to use expressions. It's just not a very clever thing to do. Do you have to compare and contrast all of the points in stage 3, which is, I just mentioned that before. Yes, again, a lot of students here will reach a decision very, very quickly, sometimes in like 2.5 minutes and 3 minutes, and they will be prompted by the examiners. The examiners will look at you and say, you still have 1 minute left. In other words, they're telling you, you've reached your decision too quickly. And this may be because you haven't spoken about all of the points. There are 7 points there, remember? So you should be looking at all of these points and pointing out just how relevant and how important they are. And especially, you should be spending a lot of time talking about those disadvantages and which one is more serious, because that will help you reach a logical decision. How long do we get to prepare in stage 4? Yes, so this stage 4 is where you formally present your 2 points each, or if you're a group of 3, 1 point each, to the second examiner, because the examiners will change. And they will give you about a minute, okay? And during this minute, remember, you're actually working with your partner. You should be talking in English, in a normal voice, so the examiners can hear you, and organizing, picking your 4 best points, and then choosing who's going to do what. Yeah, and you should be oh, well, I'll talk about this point. Which point should you choose? Okay, this one, I'll do this as my second point. Would you like to do the introduction or the conclusion? Work together. It shouldn't be a lecture. I'm doing this and this, you do that and that. I'll start, you finish. That's not good. Okay, that's dominating and almost bullying. Examiners don't like to hear that. It's not very good in a speaking exam. Work with your partner. The more you work with them, the higher your marks will be. It is that simple. So you get 1 minute. Okay, so I hope I've answered some of your questions. I may have raised about another 50 million. I'll soon find out, because of course I'm going to say, if you have any more questions, get in touch with us and we'll do our very, very best to answer them. So yes, if you're watching this video, please do check out the comments, because there's probably going to be about another 50 million questions underneath it. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.